one thing that you changed your business that you're going to keep? And what's the one thing that you had to change your business that is going to go away once COVID goes away? Because I think we've all kind of made some big changes, and some that we love, but others are like, I just can't wait to get rid of that. Like that's not gonna fly.
When I think about this, I've learned so many lessons. And when COVID first happened, I had a bunch of people reach out to me and say, hey, if your agency can survive this, they'll survive anything. And I'll be honest with you, I thought all those people were assholes the first time they sent me those messages. Not that they were assholes. I just did not want to hear that. You know what I mean? Like as I'm walking downstairs and getting punched in the gut every day at zero revenue, you know, I did not want to hear that message. As this has taken place and I've been able to, Ryan tends to be very reactionary at first, and then rational Ryan comes in afterwards and smooths out the emotional roller coaster. So as that has taken place, I've started to appreciate what they're saying. And one specific thing that I've done, and part of this is probably also just because I'm starting, new to starting the agency. I had a plan when I came into this agency. I had a plan on how I wanted to prospect, when I wanted to bring people in, when I wanted to transition into other lines. Like I had a plan, and I thought I had the systems and mentors in place to help me execute that plan. And COVID has knocked that right, just kind of obliterated that plan to a certain extent. So what I've had to do and replace is, and actually, the video that I did was part of this, but not the whole story, was I had to just say to myself, I am not smart enough to know what works in this environment. I just am not, like, I'm not that super smart guy who goes, okay, this thing is here and the Dow is here, and, my aunt's buying this product on Amazon, so that means that we need to be, you know what I mean? Like, that's not me. I'm just not that guy. So what I've done is everything. And when I mean everything, I mean everything. I mean buying dead leads, Geico, Facebook things, cold calling, cold emailing, running webinars, peer pressuring people I haven't talked to in 10 years into letting me quote their stuff on Facebook Messenger, like every tactic that you can possibly think of, leveraging old relationships, taking I don't know, you guys probably get this too, but I get a lot of inbound unsolicited opportunity calls. You know what I mean? Just like, hey, I got an opportunity because you're public. And some of them are amazing. So I don't want this to necessarily stop, because I have built some incredible opportunities that I have kind of long burns on that I'm really excited about. I'm not ready to talk about them now, but then a lot of them are, like one guy he like somehow gets past my first filter of like, this is BS, to the phone call. And then his first line on the phone call is like, you and me, we're going to take out insurance. Insurance is BS. And I'm like, oh, bro, I sell insurance. What are you talking about? And it's like some cybersecurity dude. And I was like, he had some product. And I was like, oh my God, click. But like, I guess my point is I'm taking I've just like completely opened myself up, dropped the ego down to zero, and said, if I got to get by selling auto only, 100, 300 to former Geico customers that I'm paying $1.75 a lead for, I'm going to do that. Now I know that on IAOA and some of these other groups, that's like, you get hammered for even suggesting that that's something that you're willing to do, because that's not like pure way of doing business. That's not how the elite accumulate new business. And I just said, I don't give two flying shits. I'm going to try everything. Now, what I've learned from that, and why I think I'm going to keep this tactic, and why I wanted to share this with you, is because I was coming into this with 15 years of experience into this rogue risk. And I had an ego. I had this, like, I know how to get this business. Like, I've done it before. I know all these people. I've watched all these successful guys. And since I have let down that part of my personality and just said, I don't know what works, I'm going to try everything. I'm going to test it. The stuff that works, I'm going to keep doing. The stuff that doesn't work, I'm not going to do. Like, I would have never done direct mail. I did a direct mail piece. I have gotten so much feedback from that direct mail piece. It's incredible. Now, not everyone is purchasing, but like even this morning, I had a guy on LinkedIn say, bro, saw your direct mail piece. It's awesome. I'm sending this, I'm taking pictures of it and sending it to all my HR contacts in the industry. Like that, nothing may come of that, but it's something. It's my brand in front of people. And I would have never considered doing a direct mail piece. I would have never considered it, but I just said, I don't care. I'm trying it. So this methodology of dropping my ego down, not thinking that there's a pure way or a good or a bad way to do business. It's just finding people to help and helping them, however that comes, is something I really want to and hope that I can keep doing, because it becomes tactic agnostic, right? What I hope is that if, God forbid, something like COVID or something ever happens again, I will have built the flexibility into my business to be able to negotiate that more fluidly than I did this time, which was like running full speed into a brick wall. That's what it felt like. So that's where I'm at.
Awesome. I think one of the things I took from that is like, it's a lot of agents who try every type of marketing tactic out there or every type of marketing medium. And where it fails is that they just spread themselves way too thin and they use the wrong types of communication for the wrong groups, and they don't have a niche to actually focus on. But like, I don't think there's any bad idea as long as it's done well and it's done to cater and to target to your niche for their reasons. So like, there's an agency in your state in New York that still only does direct mail. They spend $40,000 a month on direct mail, and they still grow 8 to 10% year over year. They're a huge agency. They do really well. It's just not our style, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. And whether you get online leads and that's your style and it works for you, it's fantastic. But I don't think anyone knocks that. It's just, it's nice to hear that you're trying everything. And then, I would hope that once you do locate that and identify that one thing that really works well for the niche you want to serve, go all in on it and abandon the other stuff.
Yeah. I think that's the key, is tracking, right? I think a lot of people, when people try every tactic and struggle with it, I think it's because they're not tracking where the business is coming from. And, I think that's the key, is just, if you don't know, there's no way to make an educated decision down the line. Initially getting off the ground, direct mail and cold email have been the two most productive. Like, if you look at my pipeline of quotes that I have and people that I'm currently working, it's like 90% direct mail and cold email, which I would have never in a million years at the beginning of this said that those two avenues would be the best avenues. And I'm not saying they would be for everybody. And I'm not even saying that I'm the best at doing either one of those things. Just, I guess my point is, when times get tough, I think it's very important to take down the walls of what you think you should or shouldn't be doing, and just figure out how to keep your people employed, figure out how to keep business coming in the door, how to keep helping people. And, I think that's the key. That's really what I've taken from this.
I love
what
that.
I'm hearing from you, Ryan, is that, and what I've been witnessing from the other side of the country is grit. You're like, it's not like, I'm just going to try everything. And, but it's just the fact that you're going to do whatever it takes. And it's been inspiring to watch and a lot of fun. Something that me and myself, I'm looking in the mirror and be like, man, am I still giving everything I've got in every area? Because Ryan sure as hell is. And it's really, really cool. But when you combine that grit with humility, holy cow. Like you said, you've been humbled basically to try other things or do different things. Man, if you can combine what all successful people have, and that is just the proclivity to take action and go, with some humility, holy cow. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, Rogue Risk is going to be something for a lot of people to copy because of those two things combined. Not just the proclivity to take an action, but the humility as well. So kudos to you for just leaning into both of those things. I think it's beautiful.
We'll be talking about Rogue like we talk about Uber. Some massive companies that came out of 08, 09. And, I wouldn't be surprised. Rogue Risk. I'll just keep us going. I think specifically, there's a lot of different ways that people could look at virtual use technology. and how they're going to either continue to use it in certain ways or stop using it. For me specifically, I think it's changed the way networking is going to look like for me moving forward. I think that there was really two reasons why Zach, myself, and we adopted video a long time ago. Long form, short form clips, vlogs, like all that stuff. We also enjoyed and felt comfortable communicating on video, whether it was recorded or live. But the two reasons why I don't think it ever really took off for us from a networking standpoint, from actually like communicating back and forth live with a lot of different partners, was one, the inaccurate belief that it couldn't be personal. It wouldn't be as personal as being in person. And two, that there wasn't mass adoption. People hadn't been forced to do this. So we were almost on an island with a bunch of partners that hadn't really joined, hadn't really come on that island. So even if we felt comfortable, if they didn't, it wasn't an effective use of communication. I think because of what's happened in our ability to really connect with our partners on a day-to-day basis, it's really leveled up the communication plan. I think I looked last week, I talked to 27 people live. I had 27 different video conversations with individuals live. There's no freaking way I could have ever done that in person. So I think moving forward, I'm still going to use video on a daily basis to communicate and network with referral partners, with strategic relationships, key people. I think creating the relationship from the start, I'll still want to do in person. I think that's something that's still really important. Just being there in person, kind of the nonverbal, even though you can get some on video. There is something to be said about being in person to create a relationship from scratch, but to nurture, to maintain, to keep a hold of partners, top of mind awareness. I think that we'll use Zoom calls and other forms of communication virtually forever. I think it's going to completely change the way we network and the scale at which we can network, which is the exciting piece of it. One last thing on that. We have a partner, Ryan, we have a partner who's it's actually a loan officer, Grant, who through this created a Facebook group, have started webinars. They've gotten 700 people to join their Facebook group that's private for all realtors. Their webinars are just flying off the shelf. They're free for realtors and people are just eating it up. So there are a lot of entities that are taking traditional hardcore face-to-face networking and just doing the same amount of energy, same amount of productivity, but just leveraging the technology now because everyone else is on the platform. Everyone else is acceptable to it.
My question, dude, is about, I've had a lot of people reach out to me because you said that you think moving forward that you'll still want to start a lot of the conversations in real life, which I don't disagree with, but maybe for the foreseeable future where people still maybe are uncomfortable having that coffee or whatever, even if it's social distance, what would you recommend for people who are trying to initiate a conversation where before it would be, hey, can I take you out to coffee? Can I, buy you lunch or whatever? Now it feels more, you have the same intention, but it feels less personal because you can't connect with them. Do you have any because I've gotten that question. I haven't had a great way to answer it. I'd love to know what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't have a great answer to that other than two people last week did it to me and it worked. I didn't know either one of them. They work for companies that, serve our industry. They both reached out. They said that they were referred by someone else, which would have been the same way they would have said to set up a coffee. They sent me a Zoom link. I either accepted or I didn't, both of which I accepted because it was easy and it was something that I was interested in that could help us with our mission here. So it worked. And then we had a conversation and it was personal and it wasn't as great as a coffee in person, but it still was super effective. We would have never probably gotten that coffee in person because of our busy schedules. And I would have just kicked the can saying this isn't a top priority. So I think just doing it, that's the recommendation, is just do it. Send the Zoom link, send a request and just, set up a time. I mean, what else are you going to do? Either don't do it and wait for 3 or 4 months until you can maybe meet in person.
Yeah. What you got, Zach? You want to go with your two things?
You have been quiet. This is like a life thing now? You've been very, very quiet in general, even on this call.
He's even muted right now.
I've had so much to say. I've just been muted the whole time. Yeah, I've been actually trying to be more cognizant of the mute button with Zoom calls, just because most of the time I'm an active listener and I speak while someone's talking to like get it in my head, and it actually kind of kills the recording. I'm like interrupting the whole time. Anyways, I like this topic. I like where this is going. I'm going to take it slightly more personal into a business flow. So two things that I'm going to be keeping going forward that I've started. One is the ability to say no. And I've listened to 3 or 4 podcasts on how Tim Ferriss does it, as well as I kind of read in his book, Tribe of Mentors, about how he says no. And I absolutely love it. I think it's just awesome how if you want to get to wherever you want to go, you have to be willing to put some stuff aside that is not directly helping your path. Because I've just been guilty of this in the past where I've had awesome ideas and missions and things that I want to get done in a month, in a quarter, in a year, but something comes up and I start going down that path and then neither get done. And I have to go back to my team or my family or my friends and say, I didn't get that, I need extra help. When I didn't actually need extra help, I just needed time. So one thing I'm going to keep going is the ability to say no. And what I really liked about the Tim Ferriss method is about how he teaches you to tell the person that you have missions and to-dos that you are actually behind on. So by adding this, you're actually adding more to-dos and not getting as much done. And it's a really casual way to phrase it, but also it's a firm no. It isn't a check back in a month or check back in 2 months or check back in a quarter. So that's something I'm going to keep going with because it's actually brought me a lot of joy for some finality for a no. Do any of you, do either the three of you listen to Tim Ferriss or know that podcast I'm talking about?
Yeah. I know of Tim Ferriss. I follow him on Twitter, listen to some stuff from time to time with him, but yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a huge help. The second thing that has really been helping me was, with COVID, my mornings have tremendously changed. I was a very different morning routine, and I'm grateful that that's been the biggest impact in my life is the morning routine. So like you can kind of adjust to it. But I've adopted what's called the Eisenhower matrix. Any of you guys ever heard of the Eisenhower matrix? No. It's a cool little thing that's really helping me out lately. And in essence, you make a grid. On one axis is important and not important, and the other axis is non-urgent and urgent. Now, I was screwing this up for a long time because what I was doing was anything urgent that was important, I was crushing every single day. And an example is this Zoom call. It's urgent, it's important. The problem is I wasn't getting my bigger objectives done because they're not urgent. Bigger objectives are not urgent. They're actually in that not urgent category, but important. So I'm really structuring my day to say, okay, perfectly okay if things take over the day, such as annual reviews, quarterly reviews, social media posts, if that's urgent to you. Doesn't matter. That's all urgent and important. But actually blocking out the day, like 2 hours almost every single day to work on something that's not urgent, but is important, is something I will keep post-COVID. And I'm actually very excited at the early productivity from that.
I like that.
That's cool, man. Yeah, that matrix of important and urgency, man, if you really take a look at that as you look back at your productivity over the last quarter, if you can do that on a quarterly basis and evaluate how am I doing with that, it helps a lot. I love the idea of maintaining intentionality in your schedule moving forward with it. I think that's great. I love that, man.
I think also for those listening, I think Zach, as well, three of you or two of you, you guys are very self-aware. You spend a lot of time thinking about intention and what your plans are. So there's a good chance too that you've set up goals and you kind of look forward and say, establish what's really important. I think there are a lot of people that, if they haven't even done the exercise of identifying what is important, need to do that first. Because I agree with Zach 100%. Like if you don't set aside time to do important things that aren't urgent, you'll never get them done. But there's a lot of people that don't know what important means. What is important? It's working towards longer term, bigger projects, initiatives, and goals that you really aren't going to hit you in the face on a day-to-day basis. I would say that probably 90% or more people don't have those things defined. And so it's hard for them to spend time on that. But that's the only thing I'd add on that. I think that Zach has a really clear picture of what's important in his personal and professional life, which makes it easier.
You bring up a really good point. And just to stay on this for a second, what I learned about how Eisenhower did it was he made the non-urgent urgent by putting it in his schedule and saying it has to be done during this time period. And so it's actually like a mind trick to do that. Because, Grant, looking at just your example for you for a sec, if somebody hits you up and says, I'm really interested in starting a mortgage company and I want to learn about more how you did it, that is ridiculously not urgent right now for that person, most likely. Most likely they have another business and things are working. Well, how do you actually open up a mortgage company? Well, you probably work with you, Grant, and figure out some stuff. But then after you better time block and go through things, because ultimately that's not urgent. You're never going to do it. It's just going to sit there. And then you're just going to look at Grant and you're going to be like, man, how does he do it? Well, probably sets aside time. And so I really learned a lot from that Eisenhower thing, because I know Matt, Matt's known me for forever. And there's a really big difference between, being busy and working on things that matter. And I think my default is to just be really busy, and that doesn't get me ahead. It gets me exhausted. So if I can really focus on the non-urgent stuff, like, I'm in a much better place. Much better place.
Love that, man.
But you, Grant?
So one thing that I want to keep doing post this whole coronavirus situation, and I guess I got to give some context, and some of you guys might be surprised by this based on like what my social media presence is now, but I was way anti social media a few years ago, like so much so it took me a while to get a Facebook. I did not necessarily appreciate being public much. I really held to anonymity and privacy and appreciated those things a lot and didn't believe it was necessary to communicate to the whole world the things that I was doing and not doing. And then like Ryan, as you said, I got humbled. And as part of that humility, people communicated to me like, Grant, when you're not sharing some of that information, you're being selfish with it. And although there might be some detractors and people who will say negative things, as a whole, people are going to be able to learn from you what not to do and what to do. And becoming kind of this quote unquote ambassador for my company and doing my best to make a positive impact on social media, I've learned that sharing is important and it's really helpful. And beyond giving tactical and informational advice to people, social media and communicating what I'm doing can inspire other people because it inspires me too, And over the years, I've learned to not only get over myself with it, but really enjoy it. And I now it's something I really like to do. But one part of my life that I've maintained a lot of anonymity about was my generosity. And I didn't necessarily want people to know what I was doing with my generosity, how I was doing it. And a lot of that, I think, came from my upbringing. My grandmother, my grandfather, he never learned how to read, but he was one of the hardest workers ever. And as a result, he built a business that did really well. And when he passed away, I would visit with my grandmother all the time. And one of the things that she taught me is that the value of being anonymous with your financial generosity. And it was so inspiring and fun to kind of watch her do that. And I was only able to watch because she was my grandma, right? I had a relationship with her. Well, what I'm realizing through this coronavirus stuff, now that you guys have context, is that it was inspiring to me and a big deal to me because she chose not to make it anonymous to me. She allowed me to see it, right? She wasn't 100% anonymous to everyone. And something that I've done in hopes of inspiring people and trying to encourage others to do the same is I've been very public with certain portions of my generosity. I think I'll always be anonymous with some of it. And I think there's still a lot of value in that. But I've chosen to be very intentionally public with certain portions of my generosity in hopes that it would spread positivity in certain communities, that it would help with other people to think outside of the box and help inspire other people to be generous as well. And I've really, really enjoyed that during this whole coronavirus time is the ability to be an ambassador for generosity as well. And I am going to continue doing that even when this is over, that I'm going to intentionally choose certain pieces of my generosity to be public with in hopes that it inspires others. So it was hard for me to do at first, but I'm learning, I think, that how to do it and do it better.
What was it that, like, when you say it's hard, I'm interested in, like, I know it's kind of that you were taught to be more anonymous with it, but was there a feeling? Did you worry that people would judge, or that you didn't want people to think that you were grandstanding or something like that? Was that, I'm just maybe what made you think that you shouldn't, I guess?
For sure. That's exactly it. Even before generosity, trying to be public on social media with certain things, one of the arguments I said, because I was an arrogant asshole, was that, like, I don't need to know how great your life is. I don't need to know how crappy your life is. You don't have to tell everybody about this stuff. Or, like, you know, like I just thought that was keep your life private, right? And I was wrong about that. But that's what I was scared of, that other people would say, oh, well, Grant's just flaunting online, you know? And I think that's why I was trying to be anonymous with as much of my generosity. And I value that, again, because I grew up in that. But, and there are going to be people who say that. There's nothing that I'll ever be able to do to stop some of that. But those aren't the people I'm trying to reach. You know, the people I'm trying to reach and the people that I'm going to have an impact on, the people I will inspire, are the people that have a different attitude about it. And the cool thing is, the response that I've gotten from a lot of it has been so much bigger than I ever anticipated. The impact that it's been able to make on my current audience, but even impact that it's been able to make on new people in my growing audience was like, I was like, whoa, it was extremely humbling. And it was really, really cool and fun.
That's a really tough balance. You know, I think with most of the stuff that I do, I try to be extremely anonymous as well with a lot of the things that Kristen and I choose to be generous with. And it's definitely something I haven't bridged successfully. So I'm hearing your story is kind of like, I feel like trumpets are playing in my head right now. It's definitely more of a internal worry than it is an external thing that will happen. Yeah, I think it's just self-based fear for myself.
I think it's 100% internal, because personally, I believe the world needs more giving. And I think people need permission to do things in general. And when they see someone they respect do it, it gives them permission to do it. And permission in, like, the Seth Godin way, not like actual physical permission, like, but in the mentally, some tumbler ticks over that goes, I can give $100 to this thing that I like. I can do that. Like, for whatever reason, I feel like it's certain for a lot of people, and I think almost probably for everybody, but for different things in their life, I think giving is a huge part of it. When they see someone else give, it gives them permission, or it, like, starts like an avalanche or whatever. And I mean this in the most productive and compassionate way. I think it is almost a responsibility to, in a small part, share in the least ego-driven way possible, because then it ushers other people to say, hey, I can do this too. I can be part of this thing too. I don't know.
Yeah, the word that I try to think through and focus on, as you're saying it, Ryan, is yes, tell them it's okay, give them permission, but it's an invitation.
Yeah.
Sometimes people need to be invited into things. And guess what? When you do invite them, it adds value to their life. They feel valued, and it's good. Like I'm never going to do something, I'm going to try not to do something with public generosity where I'm unable to have a real invitation for other people to be a part of it. If it can't be a community thing where beyond saying, hey, it's okay, you should be doing this or you can do this too, but really giving them tangible invitations to actually be a part of it, I think that's where you figure out that line, Zach, is what I'm doing, can other people be invited to it? Is in any way, shape, or form. If not, probably keep it anonymous. If so, man, maybe I got to get over myself and become an ambassador for this.
It's so critical that it's in the messaging and how you communicate it, because your approach and your style, Grant, is very serving, and so no one's going to hear that message and say, wow, he's just standing up and boasting about what he's giving to reflect on his own value and success. I've seen it the opposite too. We all have. I think a couple of weeks ago, seeing someone who posted about donating $1.2 million personally to this fund, and the way it was presented was very distasteful, and it was clear to the reader that this was a grandstanding opportunity. This was something to say, hey, look at me, this is what I'm doing. And that's like the end of the spectrum, worst way of doing it, right? That's probably what a lot of people are fearful and why you are anonymous for many years. But if you present it as an invitation, like you said, I don't think anyone's going to read that the wrong way.
Yeah.
Just to dive into this topic and switch it a little bit. I forget the name of the company, so I'll put it in the links, but I think it was Corda. Did you guys see the CEO that laid off 161 people and the letter he put out there?
No.
I wish I knew the name. While we're talking, I'll pull it up. Anyways, he this goes along with your point, Grant. He had to lay off 161 people for a sizable company, and he read his presentation on Zoom, but then he posted his presentation on LinkedIn, and he talked about the message and et cetera, et cetera. Now, when I read it, being entrepreneurial minded, I forwarded it to 2 or 3 people who are entrepreneurs, and both of them were like, "Oh my God, like incredible! Like what a speech! I'm so grateful he shared this." I listened to a podcast on Sunday, just a podcast I listened called My First Million, I think it's an interesting podcast. And they both crushed this guy, absolutely said this was so selfish, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they spent about 10 minutes just burying this guy and actually invited him onto the podcast so they could talk about like why he did that. They thought it was only for attention he posted it. So I think going off your point on I think you're always going to, regardless of even if it's perfectly intentioned, I took it as huge value. I forwarded it to friends. They thought it was huge value. They probably think closer to me. But then this podcast with over 100,000 subscribers just ruined him. And I thought it was just interesting. It's just all in the receiver. It really is.
Yeah. I think anytime you put yourself out there publicly on a public forum, you are opening yourself up for an invitation for people to be critical of what you're doing. Yeah. And, So, and sometimes the same types of people are going to be always critical. Might be those people who, maybe aren't quote unquote healthy, have a habit of, negativity, or have a habit of being critical of others because it's too hard for them to look in the mirror and be critical of themselves because they got some things of their own messed up. And you're not going to do a ton to change that. But man, every once in a while you might do something and it could get in a public forum with somebody in influence. And because they say it one way, it'll influence their audience too. And not a whole lot I can do about it.
To circle back really quick, just for the listeners out there, the name of the company is Carta. and the guy's name is Henry Ward. You can read it on LinkedIn. He posted just his entire speech. Actually, he posted on Medium on April 15th. And I don't know, thought it was interesting. So Carta, C-A-R-T-A, this guy's Henry Ward. It's worth a read.
Yeah. Grant, I'll say this, I know you're relatively new to sharing personal perspectives. This is probably year 12 for me. And this is my personal take on sharing outside of advertising and marketing, sharing to help. Let's put that sharing to somehow impact people or help in some way besides like, here's what I do for a living, which isn't a wrong thing to do either. Just this particular, if 100 people hate what you say and one person moves their lives forward, then that was a message that should have hit the airwaves. And the reason I say that is because I've said things before, and I would love to believe that most of what I say, the vast majority of what I say, is always with good intentions, right? I'm trying to help people. I've said things before and have gotten hundreds of pieces of negativity. I've gotten phone calls, text messages, like barrages of hate for different perspectives that I've had that were well-intentioned. And in that same vein, same message had the same number of responses positive. And my point in saying that, and I know that you have the wherewithal and the personal strength to take this, and you probably already believe it, but maybe this is for those listening at home, is you said it perfectly. Once you share your opinion in an open forum, you have to be willing to accept feedback because you decided to put that perspective out. Like, just as you have the right, this is my opinion, just as you have the right to share your perspective publicly, someone else has the right to hammer you, right? They have that right. It doesn't mean that what they did was morally right or that you agree with it, but they have that right to hammer you. So I think that we need to be cautious with where we are emotionally when we share it. But I do believe that if you have something of value, it is a personal obligation, in my perspective, to share that with the world, because if you can impact one person, it was worth it, right? It was worth it. One person, if you move them a step down the path to living a better, stronger, more secure life, whether it's, just listening to the way Grant talks, it really helps me frame up my own personal strength, right? Because you talk from a place of power, but in a non-confrontational way. I think your delivery is very, very, it's polished, but personal and very inviting. And I know that you won't stop, but I would encourage you to continue and to only push harder, because I think that yours is a voice that we need. And that will only come with more dissenters. That will only create more people who disagree with what you say. But at the same time, I believe there will be an exponentially larger pile of people who will find value in it, and it will push them forward. And I don't think you are alone in that thing. I think there are more people who can continue to share. So
thank you, Ryan. That means a lot coming from you, man. Seriously. Thank you.
Zach, on the other hand, should shut the up. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't.
Oh,
good chat with you guys.
Yeah.
I have a 10 o'clock. I'm a little bit behind on, so I'm gonna get on that horn. But it's great to see you guys. Obviously,
thank you, dudes.
Great to talk to you. I learn something every single month chatting with you guys. Take literally 2 pages of notes, and I appreciate everything you guys give.